fellow developers, writers, and everyone who loves game design.
Welcome to DLC Not Included, our weekly podcast where we discuss game development, the industry, and everything in between.
We're your hosts, Steele
and Teal. Glad you could join us.
Well, it is a beautiful Saturday morning. It is really nice outside.
Just perfect weather.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are well rested. We had a wonderful night last night with our friends.
Yes.
And we're going to go ahead and dive into the 11th episode of the revival of DLC Not Included.
11 episodes. That's awesome.
11, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically half a podcast season, but we'll see where that takes us.
We'll see.
Okay, so what is the topic for today's?
Okay, today's topic is getting good help.
Specifically what? What exactly are we going to talk about in particular?
We're going to be talking about interviewing.
Okay.
Basically interviewing and vetting people to help you with your game project.
Gotcha. And I guess we should probably note that we're going to talk about finding and vetting the short-term and long-term help.
Mm-hmm, right.
Not necessarily one-off contractors like from Fiverr.
No. That's its own little ball of wax there.
Yeah, we should probably briefly mention it at the end just because it is a thing.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that this particular topic is geared more towards the solo developer,
right,
or a small studio.
Right.
Because large studios do have HR departments that handle all their staff acquisitions.
Right. Their whole job is to look for people to do the job for the studio.
Right.
Negotiate salaries, etc. All right, so let's go ahead and cut this down as usual into categories. What'll be our first one?
Where to find your help.
Okay, so when Teal and I did the preparation for this podcast, we looked over various options and we tried to narrow it down to 3. There are a myriad, but these are the 3 most popular.
I'd say these were the most go-to.
Yeah.
And the first option, of course, are your freelance job boards.
Right. That'd be places like Freelancer, Upwork, Guru, not so much flex jobs. It's more in the IT industry, but, it is what it is. You'll find it where you find it.
Yeah, exactly.
There are going to be pros and cons to everything we're going to talk about today as far as where to find help.
Right. So let's talk about the pros of these freelance job boards.
Absolutely. One of the best things is with these job boards, you're going to get a large resource pool. You're going to get a choice of a lot of people to pull from.
There's a lot of folks sign up for these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it usually costs nothing or next to nothing to go on, put up your resume, have your resume parsed into a profile, link to your portfolio, provide references. We will get into those 2 things later. Anything that allows a potential hiring manager to find you. So when you go to one of those job boards, not to look for a job, but to look for help, you get a lot of people to choose from.
Yes.
A lot of people to choose from. And generally also it's going to be a pay-per-gig structure. You can hire people on through job boards for hourly, long-term help. But you also get the ability to go, hey, I need someone to make sprite sheets. I need someone to make models. And I have 100 sprite sheets, 30 models. I'm going to hire this person to make the models. I'm going to hire this person over here to do the rigging. It's pay-per-gig, pay-per-project.
Yeah, these job boards are really set up to do that. That's good.
Yeah.
And also, the job boards do promote a flexible work schedule.
They really do, Teal. You don't have to push yourself into a 9-to-5.
No.
When either hiring or being hired through a job board. And for a hiring manager, that's really helpful if you're going to be hiring across state, country, international lines.
Yeah, those time zones are really important to keep in mind.
Speaking of time zones, that leads us into the cons.
Okay.
The difference in time zones can make collaboration absolutely horrible at times.
Yes, it can. Yes. If let's say you're in Canada.
Right.
And you have somebody working with you in Hong Kong.
Oh, yes.
Wow. You have got a huge time zone delay. I think it's like nearly 12-hour difference.
It's rough enough. And if one of the 2 contractors there, whether it be the person based in Canada or Hong Kong, doesn't have some sort of flexibility with schedule like we just talked about, then it's going to be communication over email, and that's not the good way to do stuff.
Nope, it's not. So, you got to think about that.
Right.
Another con to these freelance job boards is that you don't have any quality control.
No. A lot of it is whether or not this person is good enough for your job.
Yeah.
Is the portfolio they're presenting genuine? Does it show enough samples of how their work is relevant to your project? And,
that genuineness is
genuineness.
Sometimes it's hard to vet.
Really can be.
Some people are really good about
taking other people's work and passing it off as their own.
Yeah.
Just come out and say it. I mean, we try not to ever accuse people of doing that, but people do that.
But people do it. So and it's hard to find that. Yeah. To suss that out.
Right.
When you're on a job board.
Right.
Which
leads to you got to have trust in a stranger.
Yeah, trusting in a stranger. That's kind of hard to do.
Right. I mean, you got to find this person who you don't know from anyone. And you have hopefully a good portfolio of them, hopefully some good references that you can check out. But you may not know any of these people. And you have to trust that this person not only is going to do the job well, but you're trusting them with your IP.
Yeah. You have to trust that they're representing themselves in a ethical and honest manner. You have to trust that they have the ability to do what you need them to do. Right. And as Steele said, you've got to trust them with your IP and some of your proprietary work. Right.
You get NDAs. NDAs are a thing.
Absolutely.
Get one that is internationally enforceable.
Yeah.
Do that. Protect your IPs by copywriting them. And what is that? NTS? What is the little?
The NFT.
Yeah, the NFT.
Watch out for that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that specifically during a podcast about IP protection.
Yes,
but you want to do everything in your power to protect your IP.
Yeah.
Prior to seeking help from people you don't know, especially. And then also you got to watch out for difference in style. So you have contractor over here is going to make 50 of your models. If contractor B is going to make the other 50 models, but they're all technically the same grouping.
Right.
Like, they're all characters in one game. You need to make sure the two styles match. If they don't, you got a big issue.
Yep. So I think we've discussed those freelance job boards to pieces.
We have.
As I say, that's the most common one. But another option would be an actual outsourcing service. Places like Knock Knock or Narasoft or even Jabub Games.
Right. Places that will gladly tell you they're the best choice.
Yep.
Because outsourcing services is newer. We're not talking about a staffing agency.
No, that's different.
Right, a staffing agency is you go and you're getting people. Basically, it's a job board that you go to them and they just give you people. An outsourcing service is literally a company that does the job for you on an outsourcing basis. So
that's right.
Let's say you have your small team, people who you can work with. You have yourself, you have your composer, and you have your map designer, your level designer. But you go to this outsourcing service and they handle your models, your rigging, your texturing, your shaders, all that stuff.
Right.
They handle your particle effect generator and they just hand you, what the emitters are, stuff like that. Those are outsourcing services.
Yes.
And one of the best things about those is the quality control is usually, make sure you vet your outsourcing service because the quality control, if it's a good service, is really high.
Yes, and really that is so important.
Yeah.
You have a consistency in in the look of your game and the sound of your game, and it's all just top-notch stuff.
Right. They make sure that what you get is what you're paying for.
Yep.
They make sure that what you get fits your project. They handle all the in-house QC, not you. And generally speaking, despite the fact that if you look at the price tags of some of these, they can be rather high, it's generally very cost effective because you're not paying for, let's say, 10 different contractors or employees to finish a project.
Yeah.
You're paying for a company that happens to put 10 people on your job.
And in the long run, that's very cost effective.
Very much so.
Trust me.
Yeah.
It is much easier to pay one price in one place than a whole bunch of prices for 10 or 15 different people.
Right. And they're going to generally have flexible pricing plans. I mean, you're going to have some places that are say it's going to cost this much no matter what. Those places I would tend to avoid. I would go with the ones that have the pricing plans.
Yeah.
So let's say that, they look at the scope of your project and dependent upon the size of your project and the deadline, they're going to charge you this much to outsource those tasks.
Right. Yeah.
And generally speaking, the good outsourcing services have those, and I would look for that. That doesn't mean that they're the greatest thing in the world.
No, because there are some cons to the outsourcing services.
Right.
First and foremost, you don't have any personal control over these people. They don't work for you.
No.
They work for the outsourcing service.
Right. So specifically, we're talking about the designers, the artistic stuff that end up working on your project. You'll have contact with the service.
Absolutely.
But not the contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Like Teal said, they don't work for you. So no personal control, no personal contact outside of whatever the service allows.
Mm-hmm.
The service may not allow you to talk directly to the contractor for fear that you'll try to, hey, if I pay you a little more than what they're paying you, will you work just for me?
Yeah,
That kind of
poaching
thing.
them.
Yeah, poaching them.
But other just to put this out there, yes, other services, some will allow you to work with the people directly and everything. But at the end of the day, those people work for the outsourcing service.
Which brings you to the whole no personal control.
Yeah.
You don't control them. You just give them the work, and then you pay the management company.
And it gets done.
Right.
Which leads you to the second issue, which is management concerns.
Oh boy. Yeah. This could be a big one.
So let's say one of the people that is brought on is just a problem. It's just not working out.
Right.
You have to go through the agency, the service.
Yep.
And it's up to them to pull that person or coach them or redirect them or whatever.
Right. I mean, now, if the person's obviously a danger, like let's say it's obvious that they're corrupting your code or stealing or something, or
installing,
I mean, you can cut them right then and there off. You can control access to your project, but then you got to go to the management company. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, you're done, I'm hiring someone else. You got to go to the management company because you have a contract with them.
Yeah, and you have to talk with them, and basically it's almost like arbitration.
It is.
Just think of it like that.
It is. The good news is that when you get a rapport with these management companies, these outsourcing companies, they're more likely to take your side carte blanche.
And just work with it,
right.
And work through the issue.
Right.
And of course, it goes without saying that this is a outsourcing service, so you will not be their only client.
Yeah, when you have a freelancer working for you off of a job board, they're going to have multiple clients, but they're going to give you a lot more individualized attention because you may be one of 3 people paying them for this month. For a management company, for an outsourcing services company, guarantee you're one of 5, a dozen, 3 dozen. I mean, they have a lot of people they're going to juggle because that's how they make money. You're not the only one. And until you either throw so much money at them or have been with them so long that you're given sort of a VIP status, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
You go to Knock Knock for the very first time. Yeah, they're going to be good to you, but they're still going to be juggling you with other people. And that's just the way it is. It's business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much summing up the outsourcing services.
Yep.
And then the third option that we thought was helpful to bring up is community recruitment.
Right.
Yes, you can get folks from your own community.
That's right.
Places like community forums, Discord servers,
stuff like that. Yeah. The biggest pro here, and there's a number of them, but the biggest is a familiarity with the contractor and their style.
Yeah, know them.
Right, you know them. You may not know them personally, but you will know of them. You will know who they are and what they're capable of. You'd be like, hey, that person's known for making great maps. That person is incredible at sprite work. That guy knows how to rig just about anything. Those are the things that you'll know because it's someone who's a part of your community.
Yeah. You're familiar with them. They're easy to vet.
Really easy to vet. I mean, you can vet a person in your community just by talking to someone else who's worked with them and said, hey, is this guy any good?
Exactly.
It's that simple.
And they're easy to hold accountable as well.
Right. Social pressure is a big thing. And if someone is an active part of a community, I'm not talking about some outlier who comes in, rips someone off and leaves. I'm talking about someone who's been in the community with you. If there's a problem between the two of you, they can hold you accountable and you can hold them accountable.
That's right.
And, the community itself generally polices itself in that regard because you don't want to. You don't want to get that bad rep of being either a a contractor who doesn't deliver quality.
Oh, yeah.
Or a client who doesn't pay.
Yeah,
right.
You don't want to do that.
Right. But there are some cons here. It's not all wine and roses.
No.
You need to scrutinize their quality really, really heavily.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times, now, this is not always the case, but a lot of the times the people who are doing this don't put themselves up on professional job boards and stuff like that. That's not always the case, but they may not have a professional portfolio. They may not have professional references outside of the community. So all that means is you just have to take that extra QC step.
Right.
You got to look a little more closely, because while, Jimmy the sprite worker may be an awesome dude, he may be somebody you hang around with on the forums, you joke around with them on streams. If you're going to enter into a contractor-client paying relationship, you need to make sure that Jimmy the sprite worker can give you what you need.
Right.
And he needs to make sure that you're not going to stiff him. So a little bit more QC on both sides.
And that brings us to the team collaboration aspect of this.
Right.
You need to be able to collaborate with all of your people.
Right. Because because it's part of a community, the communication's even more important.
Yes, it is.
Not because you would think it sounds counterintuitive. You think someone you've never met before on a job board or an outsourcing service, you would have to communicate with them more. And that's not the case, because these are people who they're relying upon your reference to whether or not they get their next gig. With the people in your community, you need to communicate more simply because they're a part of your community.
Right.
The different things that happen, the different social mores. Maybe a drama happened on this sub board over there, or maybe something happened on this other side of the community that's pulling people in that direction. So communication is really key, because these are people who you know personally.
Right. And lastly, let's breakups. Breakups can suck.
They really can. The worst thing that
if
can
you
happen,
have to let somebody go.
Yeah. The worst thing that could happen in a community is when two people don't work out.
Yeah.
In a professional way.
Yep.
And we've seen this. We've actually seen this happen on the Studio Blue Discord server, where a group of developers broke up, and it was really ugly. So, unfortunately, that happens.
It does. But that is a con of recruiting through your community.
Truly.
So I do hope that we've done a good job of laying out the pros and cons for the three most popular options.
I think we have. The important thing to remember is we're not going to tell you which one is best when, because you kind of have to feel it out.
Yeah.
Is a job board better? Well, probably if you're looking more for, a one-off, outsourcing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a group of people over a period of time. But honestly, what you have to do as the developer, as the lead developer, you need to look at your situation and try to figure out what's going to work best. Do I need to work with somebody who I know in my community, because the personable relationship between myself and them right now is really important? Or is it more important that I just get a lot of work done in a short period of time? Those are the things that will determine which of these options you choose.
Correct. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. So what's next?
So the next thing is, so you're finding your help. How do you interview your potential help?
So a question for you, Teal.
Yeah.
Why should you interview? Why should you interview anyone?
Oh, gosh. That is a doozy. Well, you need to see if they fit your project.
Right.
Your vision, your temperament, your particular taste.
Yeah.
You need to see if they're a good fit with you.
Pretty much. You probably never want to take anyone at face value. We throw out these comments about talking and vetting.
Right.
Even someone in your community. But the reality is this. If you accept anyone at face value who you've never worked with before, and you start paying them, you run the risk of really shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when money comes into play, not only do friendships go out the window because money is money, but also you have a finite amount.
Yeah,
and if you spend $200 in good faith that someone's going to deliver and they don't, and your money's gone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yeah, because you didn't vet the quality.
Yeah. So interviews are so very important.
Very much so.
Now, on the flip side, the person being interviewed needs a chance to see if you are a good fit for them.
Yeah.
You guys remember, interviews are two-way streets.
They really are.
It's not just the interviewer, but the interviewee as well. Yeah. Vetting. Yeah. Okay. It's a two-way street.
It truly is. And we'll get to this in a minute, but if they're not interviewing you, if they're very passive, you should probably hard pass on them.
Yeah.
Because all of this, guys, ties into the fact that communication is absolutely key.
Yes, communication is absolutely the key here.
Yeah.
You want to see how open your communication is before your work even starts.
And interviews.
Yeah, interviews do that. You can totally see each other's communication styles and gauge, does this work for me?
How easy?
How easy is it? How difficult is it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So we brought down the interview process and our recommendations for it. When you're interviewing a person, whether you're going to just talk a little bit about the job or if you're going to do a full on-scale formal interview, it's not relevant as to whether or not you're doing a deep interview or a surface interview. These steps here that we're going to go through will help any one of you to vet someone for your game dev project or team. And we cut it down to 3 parts: the when, the where, and the how.
Yeah, we basically titrated an entire interview course down to 3 words: when, where, and how.
Okay, so when do you interview, and how often? At what point do you interview?
Okay, you have to interview the person at least once.
Right.
Okay, you always have at least one interview.
Right.
You need to do this, I'd say at least a few days to a week before starting them.
Right.
Okay, you want to give both of you a chance to think things over before work begins.
Absolutely.
Because that interview is a two-way street.
Literally never hire immediately.
Oh, gosh, no.
Even if it's a community member, just don't do that. That is such a mistake.
Yeah.
Speaking of community members, it's probably okay to interview them just once, but people you've never met, I would do too.
Yeah. Honestly, twice is a very normal practice.
Right.
So don't think that you've only got to do it 1 time or 2 times.
Right.
Honestly, it's at the end of the day, it's you vetting them vetting you. How much can you learn in the interview?
Yeah, if you can learn, like, for example, if it's a community member, somebody you've been around for a long period of time.
Yeah.
If you can just from one conversation with them glean that this is going to work, and they from one conversation with you go, yeah, I want to work and get paid by these people. Then
boom, you're done.
But if it's someone you've never met, it's going to require more of a process, especially if you're going to interview multiple people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, now the where. Okay. Where's a good place, I say in air quotes, because we live in a virtual society nowadays, to interview?
Okay. The where is important because you need some sort of real-time interaction.
Really much.
You need to be able to see the nuances of your potential staff members' expressions, their body language, their tone.
Right.
So honestly, I think that online video chat is the best.
Right.
Because you all can see each other.
There's so many little things that the human body does and the human face does. Little twicks here, twitches there, a hand scratching a nose. I mean, little things.
Yeah, all the body language.
Right. And then the vocal inflections, which you obviously will hear in a video chat. But let's go away a moment from the norm of formal interviewing.
Okay.
And let's talk about communities. Okay, so a lot of us community members here use aliases, candles, etc., because we value a level of anonymity.
Right.
But you still want to have something during a professional interview. Something to vet. So in that case, I would say a voice chat would work.
Online voice chat, I think, is the next best thing.
Right.
Because although you can't see the person, the voice does give a lot away.
It does. Now, that doesn't mean that y'all can't both turn on your cameras, turn on Face Rig, and have your avatars talk to each other. then you can have a fox talking to a hamburger. But reality is this. That doesn't give anything. Go to voice chat if you can't do video chat.
Right.
You know, chat, talk to the person, just do a Discord call.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if the person who you're trying to interview on a professional level, you know, someone you got from a job board, if you can't get them on video chat for whatever reason, then a voice chat will work.
A voice chat will work fine too.
And a lot of the management companies will do phone calls.
Absolutely.
So
they do.
That's good.
And I guess this goes without saying, but I just want to point out, just for the sake of pointing out, that when you're conducting these calls, make sure you're in a quiet place that is as free from distraction and interruptions as possible.
Right.
Because there's nothing more annoying than you're trying to talk with somebody, and it's pretty important, and dogs are barking, bells and whistles are going off. I mean, I don't know, just stuff is happening.
The little ones are crying around, running about your feet. I get what you're saying.
You hear forklifts in the background.
Oh my God, forklifts.
So yeah, please, for just the sake of everyone's sanity and professional courtesy, have your interview take place in a quiet place that doesn't have any distractions.
That goes, by the way, for the interviewer and the interviewee.
Oh, all of them, but everybody, both sides.
Yes.
Both sides.
But if you can't do video, Teal, and you can't do voice, is there any other method of communication you would consider acceptable?
Yeah, okay. So, online text chat.
Okay,
yes, I don't care for it, but yes, it is viable. You know, especially if there's some technology issues or whatever, you can always do a text chat. I don't really care for it because it is very easy to hide or mask negative behaviors or traits.
Yeah.
It can hide barriers that will absolutely create communication issues during your collaboration.
So, for example, tech issues, language barriers, things where, okay, it's not going to be as easy to communicate with this person as I need to during critical parts of development.
Yeah.
Collaboration. Yeah. And that's the truth because, but we're talking about real-time chatting. So
real-time chat.
Right. Chatting over like an instant messenger program or Discord or something. And that would be, to us, the least, like the lowest thing that we would accept.
Right.
Because you really want to stay away from things like email interviews, you know, emailing them questions and then emailing you back.
No, that's just not, you don't do that.
Because at that point, you're missing that all-important real-time feedback.
Yeah, you are. What is the point of interviewing if all you're going to do is just send somebody an email?
Right.
I don't know.
A lot of companies will email preliminary questions. And then from those preliminary questions, determine who they're going to do a face-to-face video, etc. interview with.
Right.
So while you can totally email preliminary questions, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the interview itself needs to have some element of real time. So that's the where.
That's the where.
All right, now let's jump into
the how.
Now, we're not going to talk about a list of acceptable and unacceptable interview questions. We will in a minute list those, but we're going to talk about everything else related to the how. Because an interview is part information sharing, part psychology.
Right.
Now, and that's a lot of things. When you are a hiring manager, when you're an interviewer, you learn that. When you get a little personal story, we've gotten thrown into that process before. And it's very much, suddenly you become a psychologist. You got to look into the psychology of the potential staff member.
Right.
But that's what they're at. Yeah.
So you come with a list of questions.
Right.
And you ask these questions with prepared follow-ups. And be ready to ask and answer their questions.
Exactly, because this part psychology piece is by asking these questions, answering them, asking follow-ups, etc. What you're doing is you're getting in to the potential staff member's head.
Right.
To see if they can contribute to the project that you're doing. And if so, by how much? And
let me dial back a little bit. In thinking about the person you're interviewing, they absolutely need to be asking questions.
Right.
Okay. Otherwise, to me, it just looks like they want money.
Right.
They just they don't care about the job. They just, how much you going to pay me?
Right.
You don't want those people.
No, you don't.
So if the person is silent, they don't have any questions.
Yeah.
And you, as the interviewer, be ready with an offered pay.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's hourly or per component or project or salary.
Right.
Just be ready to negotiate pay with them, because you may only need one interview with them. And so be prepared near the end of the interview to talk about compensation, because you may actually get to that point.
Right. And I want to take a moment specifically towards community, because this is not as much of a thing when you're negotiating pay with a job board or a service. Mm-hmm. When you're negotiating with it, when you're talking to a member of the community, when you're interviewing a member of the community, if they're the kind of person that has a list up, a price list, and says, this is how much I'm going to charge for this bust, this is how much I'm going to charge for this sprite, that's not something you want to negotiate, because they're not looking for a long-term project. They just want a one-off.
Right.
But if you're going to talk to that person about long-term, hey, I need you to help me make, all the concept artwork for my game. Mm-hmm. And they're not willing to negotiate the price, then they're saying, well, if it's 20 pieces and it's $20 a piece, that's what I charge, then that's something you want to probably consider, possibly even back away from, because if you're offering them that level of bulk, mm-hmm. and they're not willing to at least talk price with you, that to me, that's a red flag.
It is a red flag, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the money. That's where a lot of disagreements happen.
The community breakups, mm-hmm. such. Yeah.
So if you can't negotiate pay at the start, then that's not a good fit. That's just not a good fit.
Right.
You're not a good fit for them. Right. They're not a good fit for you. Yeah. So it's okay. Walk away and go find somebody else.
There's literally nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not.
There isn't. I'd rather learn up front during the first 5 minutes of conversation mm-hmm. that financially it's not going to work between me and a person.
That's cool.
Than to start some BS and end up having drama and arbitration. So
right. So
be transparent.
Be transparent and be ready.
Yeah.
And lastly, as part of your list of questions, ask for a portfolio. Mm-hmm. Ask for a list of their past projects, and get references.
Yes.
You want professional references. Yes. You need to look these over later on when you're not interviewing.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. Please follow up on all references. Take a real good hard look at their portfolio. And something that I do is I just do a quick search to see if the stuff is their own or if it got lifted from somebody else.
True story.
You got to do that in today's world.
Yeah. And the project's verifiable.
Yep.
So, hey, I did the artwork for this game. Well, if they're doing it under an alias, go talk to the person who created the game and ask them. Mm-hmm. If they're doing it under their real name, just look and see if they're in the game credits.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
It's simple to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as far as the portfolio goes, don't look at it while you're interviewing them. That is actually kind of rude.
That's actually rude. No, wait till after the interview's over and then go through the portfolio and just see if it's original stuff.
And then contact their references again.
Oh, yes.
After the interview.
Always.
Important piece to note. References, professional references, in most countries, I know it's the way in the United States, cannot say anything negative. They can only verify contract or employment.
I'm not familiar with how other countries do it, mm-hmm. But I do know about the United States.
Right.
And what Steele says, absolutely true. You get into all kinds of litigation issues mm-hmm. if you say anything negative about a person. It's just the world we live in. Right. So most references are just going to verify dates of employment and maybe projects they worked on.
Yeah, there's a code. I'll give you guys this as someone who has been on the hiring side, the hiring management side. There is a code to, I'm not really sure this is a good reference kind of thing. When you say, hey, I'm contacting you to, this person was listed as a reference, I'm contacting to verify employment. If they say, okay, yeah, we can verify this person was, between this date and this date. And you go, okay, great. How are they as an employee? Blah, blah, blah. Ask for the reference portion. Mm-hmm. If they say if they repeat, we can verify. That's generally, okay, we can't say anything. We're just verifying. until you can go, okay, this reference is probably not favorable.
Yeah.
Having said that, always vet your references before you put them on your resume. Make sure it's someone who's going to give you a good reference.
Yeah.
But the do-si-do. But anyway, we don't want to spend too much time on that. We just want to give you guys, as potential hiring managers, you can kind of feel from talking to a referencer, a reference, whether or not it's good, bad, or whatever.
Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah.
All right. So now we're actually going to go over a list of acceptable interview questions. This is not an exhaustive list.
There's no way.
And we're not going to sit here and and squat all over these. We're just kind of go over each one. And also, not all questions pertain to each of the where to finds. So, for example, one question may not work for a community member, while another may not work for a outsourcing service. We're going to kind of just go through these quickly because we don't want to. This is not a podcast about interview questions.
Yeah, but at the same time, just. You get a feel for the types of questions that you should be asking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you Google acceptable interview questions, you're going to get most of the stuff we're about to say.
Yeah. So do that.
You want to go over them?
Okay. The first one I think is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question that you can ask if your project contains adult themes, adult stuff.
Right.
Or if there are very strict labor laws.
Right.
You can ask, are you over the age of 18?
That's right.
You're not asking for an actual age.
Right.
You're just asking, are you over the age of 18?
And by the way, if your project is adult, if it's an adult style game, you absolutely want to ask this question.
Yes.
You do not want a minor working on an adult game under any circumstances. So, yeah, it's a good question to have.
Mm-hmm.
Another good one, I love this one. This is one of my favorite interview questions of all times. Tell me about yourself. It's not a question, but it is, because it gives them the floor to talk.
Yeah.
You want to listen and let them see what they have to say about themselves. Some people, when you ask them that question, will go into their work history.
Yeah.
Others will talk about their personality and the kind of person they are. Others will talk about the kind of games they like to work on, et cetera, et cetera. It's an open-ended question that gives you a chance to see inside of their head.
Yeah, what do they feel is the most important? What's important to them?
Right.
That definitely comes out in that tell me about yourself question.
These two go together.
Yeah, this next two are often asked together.
Right.
And you've all heard them. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?
So, yeah, you definitely want to find out what they're good at. You really do. You need them to say, I'm good at X. Because if you hire them because they're good at X and they end up not being good at X, they lied to you.
They lied and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And the weaknesses one's important too.
Mm-hmm. Because what it shows is they're willing to admit something they're not that strong at. Mm-hmm. And most people will spin it. They'll say, okay, well, I'm weak at this, but I'm doing this, or I have done this to overcome it, blah, blah, blah.
And that's actually okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. In fact, if they just say, what's your weakness? Well, I'm lazy. That's a problem. If they say, what's your weakness? Well, I have trouble with motivation, but recently I've begun to take, self-motivation courses and stuff like that. Or I have trouble with motivation. That's my weakness because I have to have a project I really believe in, and your project is something I really believe in. They just spun a negative into a positive.
Exactly. So, these questions are both usually asked in tandem. Okay, here's another one. Okay. Why do you want this job or contract?
Right.
Basically, you're asking what drove this person toward you.
Right. Because if you're, if they're going to say, I want monies, probably not somebody you want to work for. I mean, we know that. Everybody knows that a person who wants a job wants money. That goes without saying. But what is it about this particular project? What is it about the game you're making that makes them want to jump in?
Exactly.
And with that, equally important is what do you know about our studio or project? Mm-hmm. That's actually a very important one.
Yeah.
Because if they come to interview for you, whether it was, hey, I found this guy on a community board, I've been on phone with him for years, I think he'd be a great artist for you, or you find someone on guru.com, if they come to your interview knowing nothing about your studio, nothing about your project, that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue. Okay, so the rest, let's just go ahead and just fire off.
I'm just going to fire off the rest of them.
Okay,
because they're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
What's your ideal game project?
Boom.
What attracted you to this studio?
Shazam.
Why should we hire you?
Mm-hmm.
What did you like least about your last project?
Yep.
What were you most satisfied with at your last project?
Mm-hmm.
What can you do for us that other candidates can't?
Yep.
What did you do at your last project that you were particularly proud of?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been doing this kind of work?
And finally,
do you have any questions for me?
And if you ask that question and you get, I don't have any, not a good fit.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to see some level of proactivity and motivation, regardless of how good their portfolio is.
Did they do any kind of research at all on your company or your projects? Did they even try?
Because it's important. I mean, we make a lot of jokes, but it is important that they have that they care.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why should you hire them? Now I'm going to go very briefly over a list of unacceptable interview questions.
I want to do this.
Okay, never mind.
I'm doing this
Teal's doing
because I have done this for years.
Okay.
Guys, the following are unacceptable interview questions. Straight up asking their sex, gender, maiden name, birthplace, age, specific age, not over the age of 18 part, but asking for a specific age. Their race or ethnicity, religion, political views, citizenship. I think you get the picture. You do not ask these.
Sexual orientation. I mean, basically anything that outs a personal part of their lives that you could use to discriminate, right?
It is straight up. You are not allowed to do this.
Right.
You don't do that.
Right.
You're opening yourself up to all kinds of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of this, unacceptable questions, is if you're trying to use any question to determine their age, sex, gender, relationship status, financial situation, criminal background, or disability, you are in the wrong, son.
You really are.
Don't do it. You don't want to go in there.
And let me say this. We all come from different parts of the world, and there are some countries where some of the things we just went over, there's no law against. That doesn't matter. This is an international community, the game dev community, and if you get known for that kind of discrimination, that kind of tomfoolery, you're going to start getting ousted, blacklisted, turned into a pariah.
Yeah. People will not work for you. So just leave that stuff out of your interview. You don't need it. It's not important for the job.
Right.
It truly is not.
Exactly.
It's important for the job.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Don't do it.
Doesn't matter. Now I do want to give one caveat, if I may, Teal.
Okay.
The criminal background thing. If the project requires you to do either a criminal background check or a credit check, you can follow it up, but you're not asking them. You're saying all applicants for this position have to undergo a check.
Right.
But everyone who applies, not just that one person.
Yeah.
Everyone.
There's a process that's first and foremost notify. You notify them yes. In order to be considered for this position, you have to submit to a criminal background check.
Right.
Do you consent? Yes or no?
Right.
Or credit check. Do you consent? Yes or no? You ask this of everyone, and it's done. Yeah. So but again, those kind of checks need to be relevant to your project or studio, or you're walking into gray territory there.
Right. I mean, again, we don't know the laws of other countries, but here in the United States, you actually cannot discriminate against someone who has a criminal background unless it specifically pertains to the job.
Right.
It has to, or credit checks. Like if you're going to a financial institution, credit check.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're going to go, make a video game, not a credit check. So just keep that in mind, guys.
And you can look up, you can Google the different laws on this stuff. It's pretty easy to find, and do some research. I encourage you guys, do some research of what's acceptable and not acceptable to ask for and require in an interview.
Yeah.
And that, it's just that simple. Do your own research, I say with a smile, because honestly, at the end of the day, this is about you finding the right person for your job.
Right.
And what you don't want to get involved in is all kinds of litigious issues.
You really don't. It slows down everything. It gives you a bad name, and it can stonewall your project.
So, yeah, let's just do things the right way. So, how to choose the right help.
So we're going to tie this all in together. And this is going to be more of a dialogue and just talking about little pieces, parts, because there's no one right way. There's a golden rule of this, okay?
Yeah, the golden rule of interviewing.
Right. It is as important, if not more important, to get the person whose personality and temperament will match the team and you.
Yeah.
Than it is that their skill set can match yours. Here's the reason why, and I'll kind of turn it over to Teal after this.
Sure.
You could have the most talented person in the world, and if they can't work with you, if you can't work with them, if they can't work with your team, if your team can't work with them, it's not going to work out regardless of their level of talent. So go ahead. Let's talk about this. Teal, anything you want to add about on reading people, feeling them out during interviews, etc.?
Yeah, that's the whole point of an interview process, is to feel the person out if they're going to be a good fit for you and the project. And this isn't just about skill set. It's also about personality and work ethic and priorities and how they communicate. And this is all part of what we call reading a person.
Yeah.
And the flip side, they're doing the same thing with you. They need to see, they're trying to figure out, can they work with you and with your studio's culture and your team's priorities. Because some teams have a priority on deadlines. Other teams have a priority on collaboration. We do it till we get it right. So you got to see if that's a good fit for you. I've had more than one hiring manager tell me that, just person to person, that they interview for personality.
Right.
They don't care about the skill set because they're like, we can teach you to do this and that.
Right.
We can teach you this.
Right.
We just want to know if we can come to work with you every day and stand you for 8 hours.
It's true.
But that is just the nutshell of an interview is, can you work with this person for a long period of time without punching them in the face?
Well, to joke on that, when I interviewed for one of the studios down here in Houston years ago, remember I already had a portfolio. I showed them what I could do.
Oh yeah.
And the hiring manager there said, "Look, I just want to let you know, your portfolio told me whether or not you have the skills. This interview is to whether or not I can stand your damn face."
That's it. That's
basically it.
That's basically it.
Yeah. So it's read them.
Read them.
And this kind of goes into the other important rule. If they don't at least have a portfolio, a list of verifiable past projects or references, if they don't have anything that says that they can do what they say they can do, don't consider them.
Yeah.
It ties the two things together.
Yeah.
Look and see what they can do, actual verifiable evidence, and then interview them to see whether or not you can work with them. It's that simple.
Man, you just said it right there. That's our whole podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Right there, what Steele just said.
Join us next time. And we want to repeat ourselves one more time.
Okay.
When you're interviewing them, if they do not ask a question when you prompt them, then they do not care about the project or the studio. They just want to get paid.
So, nah.
Yeah.
You don't need that. Also, I want to piggyback on that. Keep your eye out for people who are asking too many questions about the pay, the compensation. They seem to focus too much on your communication guidelines.
Right.
How, when, where do I do this?
Right.
Or, oh boy, or if they ask for every single thing to be clarified.
Unless there's a natural
language barrier.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get so annoyed. I personally get very annoyed with someone who asks for every single thing to be clarified.
Yeah, all three of those are red flags.
They are red flags.
If all they're asking about is money, okay, do they really care about the job? Hey, when do I get paid? How do I get paid? How often do I get paid? That kind of thing. If too much about communication guidelines, how often do I have to answer my emails? How often do I have to attend meetings? You see where I'm going with this, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if someone focuses their interview questions on that, that's probably not the kind of person you want to be working with.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the one-offs.
Oh, like Fiverr?
Yeah. Then we'll jump into the podcast questions if there are any. So, excuse me. Okay, so we talk about Fiverr, but this is any one-off.
Well, there's also other one-off contractor services. Fiverr's not the only one, but it's the most popular one.
Right, and for those in the community who toss up their price sheet, hey, I'm doing sprite work. Here's what I charge. That's a one-off. Mm-hmm. So when looking at a one-off, the most important thing is to shift almost every single bit of your scrutiny onto proof of ability and testimonials. That's key. Yeah. Right there.
Mm-hmm. You want to look for their portfolio pieces and the customer reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important, because you want to be able to see, since you're only paying them for, let's say, a couple of busts or a couple of sprites or a model, you want to see, can they do exactly what you need them to do for the money you're about to pay them, and have other people that they've worked with come across satisfied.
Yes.
This is really easy to do in a community situation, because generally they'll post in a forum or on a Discord server, hey, here's what I can do. They'll show examples, and then you can talk, hey, has anyone ever worked with such and such? Oh, I have. He's fantastic. She's just amazing with her quality, and her turnaround time is so good. Speaking of turnaround time.
Yeah. Please look at the promised turnaround time. It's usually on their profile.
Yeah.
Compare it to the testimonials.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they spot on? Do they say, okay, yeah, my turnaround time is 24 hours, and their testimonials say, yeah, 24-hour turnaround time. Loved it.
Right.
That's great. But then the same token, if they say my turnaround time is 24 hours and testimony is saying, oh, it kind of sucked, 48, 72-hour turnaround time.
I waited 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But stuff like that is a red flag, and that's the kind of stuff where you really have to focus on.
Over-promising, under-delivering.
Yeah, exactly.
And like before, keep your eye out for fake testimonials and potentially ripped portfolio pieces.
Yeah, it's easy to fake. It's easy to fake. If all the testimonials have similar cadences, similar spelling mistakes, similar everything, they're probably fake. And by the way, there are services out there where you can pay for fake testimonials.
Isn't that awful?
That's crappy.
Yeah.
And then, hey, if the portfolio piece for, John X looks exactly like Jill Y, there's some issues. There's some issues. So just, the big thing is this: when you're looking for help for your game project, be aware. Make sure that they are a good fit for you, and just ask as many questions as you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Ask until you don't feel like you have to ask any. You can't ask too many questions as the interviewer.
Right.
And they can't show too much interest as an interviewee by asking questions and getting to know you.
Yeah, they need to be asking questions. Don't be silent. Both of you should be talking, asking questions, chatting with each other. That's an interview.
Communication from the moment of interview up to and including all aspects of the business relationship is key.
Yeah, so it is.
Okay, so now it's time for us to take questions from our live audience.
If you've been watching, remember to use the podcast question feature in chat.
Costs only 50 slime points, which is basically you guys listening to us for 15 minutes.
Aww.
It's real simple. Okay, so while we're waiting to see if there's any questions from our live audience, as this marks the 11th of our podcast, we are technically halfway through the first season. We are going to dedicate the rest of season 1 to ways that you can be a developer.
Yes.
We've kind of talked about this in previous podcasts, but this is absolutely going to happen. Season 1 of DLC Not Included is specifically how to be a developer.
Yes.
Season 2 is where we'll actually start talking about development process. So that way you guys can kind of look at the two and go, okay, now, if you're listening to DLC Not Included, Season 1 will help me be a developer.
Right.
Season 2 will help my craft.
So there it is.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see if we have any questions. Not yet. We'll give it a few minutes.
Okay.
We always do. Have you, Teal, here's a question for you. Okay?
Okay.
When you work for interviewing people, what do you specifically look for?
I look for compatibility, personality compatibility.
Yeah.
And that encompasses not just, basic personality, but values and priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, honesty is very important.
Yeah.
So I look for that. Work ethic is very important. So I look for that.
Same here.
I'm not so hung up on procedure.
Yeah.
A person, as long as they get the job done, I don't care if they do it between the hours of 8 and 5 or if they work from midnight to 7. I don't care.
Right.
As long as it gets done. And so I look for somebody who has that level of dedication.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about personality types, and I'm going to lean on the old Myers-Briggs because everybody's familiar with that. So, being an INTJ,
right?
I look for someone who has some similar compatibilities. The absolute worst fit for me would be someone who is all the opposite. I think it's like E something EFP. If I'm focused on getting the job done, and the other person is focused on feelings and let's all be friends and stuff like that, which is my interpretation of those the EFP people, that's not going to work. And it really, at the end of the day, it does boil down to can I be around this person for an extended period of time?
Right.
Because the person wouldn't even be trying to interview unless they had some skill set to offer.
Right.
And, that's why they forward their resume. You look at the resumes first. You always look at the resume before you interview the person. I'm looking at some hiring managers. Yes, I'm looking at you who don't even look at the resume till the interview. That's not good.
No, prepare, please.
Yeah, but the skill set's going to be there. You're interviewing for the person.
Right.
So again, leaning on the personality types, I would look for someone who is, as I said, has a compatible personality, who has similar priorities, work ethic, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question here. Podcast question from KV. KV says, you mentioned earlier that you recommend interviewing someone twice. What would be some reasons you would want to do 2 interviews? How would you structure them? That is a very good question.
Yep, that is a good question.
May I field this one?
You go ahead, yes.
Okay, so first off, again, if it's a community person, 1 interview is probably enough, and here's why. The first interview generally is to get a feel for the person. Mm-hmm. Is this person's personality going to work at all? So if I'm going to interview a person that I met off a job board, my first one I'd want to get to know them.
Yeah.
I'd want to get to know, are they the kind of person I can work with, whether it be remotely or in an office or what have you. The second interview would be a lot more diving into situational scenarios as to whether or not they can handle the workload of my project.
Yep. Yes.
So if I was going to hire someone for helping me with an FPS, the second interview would be a lot more about their work on first-person shooters, scenarios about, the design pipeline, talking specifically about, how they would want to handle, say it's a level designer.
Right.
How they would handle scenarios where we have only a certain number of minutes that the player can be in a level, but we have to pack absolute maximum narrative. Stuff like that. Like, I'm making stuff off the cuff, but it would be that. Mm-hmm. So I would structure the first interview as a game developer. I would structure my first interview to get to know the person. My second interview specifically to see if they can handle the project we're doing. If it's a community person, that 1 interview would be a mishmash. Mostly, the first half, just, hey, okay, I kind of know you. Let's get to know you a little better. That's fantastic. Okay, let's make sure you can do what I need you to do. Yeah. Boom. So that's how I would structure them personally. Anything you want to add to that? Or
No, you tackled all, you got all the high points.
Rock on. Okay, we have another podcast question.
Okay, this is from Burke.
Okay.
Considering the existence of communities, not just tightly around a given engine, but general game dev groups, like Game Dev League or Game Dev Network, how
how they
are expected to give your rates as a one-off contract. Do you think this could also be applied to communities built around your project, like certain Discords for specific RPG Maker projects?
I think I'm understanding his question.
Okay, I'm not at all clear, Burke, on your question.
I might be. Let me go ahead and try this, and then you can answer it. Okay. So I think what Burke is asking is, considering the existence of communities around certain things like dev groups or such like that, and how those people in those groups expect you to give your one-off rates. Do you think this could also apply to communities built around projects or the RPG Maker community or the Unreal community? In other words, do you feel that the larger game dev communities, their methodology of, hey, I'm going to give you my one-off rates and then going from there could apply to anything else? I believe that's what Burke is asking.
Okay. Well, I guess you could start use the one-off rates as a jumping-off point for negotiations.
Yeah,
that's certainly a tack I would do. The posted rate, at least to me, shouldn't be the end-all be-all. And if it is, then at least for me, I wouldn't want to go that route.
Right.
But I think generally you want to consider a posted rate to be a starting point of the conversation if it's an actual project. We're talking about multiple tasks, multiple elements that have to be constructed and delivered.
Right.
That's not a one-off.
No.
Though that's an ongoing commitment.
That's a good way of structuring ongoing, because ongoing could be short-term or long-term, but it's more than a one-off. While a one-off, go with their price sheet. Yeah,
seriously. Yeah. They have that price sheet up there for a reason.
Right. Go ahead and respect it.
Please respect it.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of summarize that and to kind of pull back from what we said earlier, if it's a one-off, respect what they're asking. If it's a ongoing, whether it be short-term or long-term, they should be able to negotiate there. Okay, we got another one from Harmless Game Dev. Hi, Steel and Teal. Hey, Harmless, good to see you.
Hey, Harmless.
Have spent the last few years working on my craft as a creative. Now I want to focus on legitimizing my business practices, how to do things properly, and working with others. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
What advice would you give someone in my position who is between junior and senior part of their career? Wow. We just got slapped with a doozy.
Yeah, but Harmless, I also I really want to dive deep into your question. I'd like to talk with you more one-on-one.
There you go.
I feel like that I think that you could learn a lot just by talking one-on-one with me rather than just me simply answering a question on this podcast. I'd like to, if you would hit me up on our Discord at Teal on the Studio Blue Discord. I do want to chat with you. I really want to help.
Yep.
I have been there in your position, and
awesome.
I am so grateful for the couple of mentors that did step up at that time of my life and help steer me in the right direction. Because I, for one, I'll just tell you, I was going in circles for about 5 years. I wasted 5 years of my life, just floundering. And I want to see if I can help you. In your position, junior and senior part. That is actually a rough part of anybody's career, is when you're going between the what Harmless says is the junior part. When your career start to mid career. That's a big jump actually between mid career and in mid career and late career. Is not such a bad transition.
No.
But early career to mid-career, that's a lot. And I do want to talk with you. And anybody else that is finds yourself in that position, hit me up. If I get enough people that I'm talking with about it, I may just do a podcast on that, or
Some kind of a classroom.
Some kind of classroom. Yeah. This is so important, and I can't state it enough that career development is crucial between your early and your mid-career, because that where you hit in your mid-career absolutely determines the rest of your course.
So I want to go ahead and take a moment and say this. A lot of times when someone asks us something that's outside of the scope of whatever we're talking about, we'll either refer them to something we've done or refer them to something we're going to do. And we do things like planning out, running a studio, managing your career, etc. But this is amazing that Teal has reached out to you. And that's anyone who needs help with this, because it's just something that she is very passionate about. I would highly recommend you take her up on this offer. This is a big thing. And she can absolutely help you. So awesome. Very cool of you, honey.
Thanks for asking, Harmless.
Yeah, very, very, very cool of you. Okay, so having said that, if we don't have any other questions, I do have something to ask you again, honey. Sorry, I got to get you to talk some more.
Okay.
If you were going to interview someone specifically for Studio Blue, let's say for one of our projects, let's say the Rosenhart project, what would you look for? Let's kind of show how we would do things. How would you interview someone for the Rosenhart's RPG, just in general?
Well, I would, first of all, I would want to do a Zoom interview. And yes, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I know it's a big deal because I'd be showing my face, but it is important on a game that I feel is so important, like the Rosenharts. I want to absolutely make sure that I get the best people on my team that I can work with over the course of the years it's going to take to get this project done.
Right.
So I will be doing a Zoom interview. And during this interview, I'm going to be looking for personality compatibility, where your priorities lay.
Okay.
And your experience in being on teams. I'll be asking a lot of team-related questions.
Yeah.
Because I will be looking for somebody who is a team player and not a lone wolf.
True story. Can I ask you a follow-up to that?
Sure.
How would you weight their love of the genre, steampunk? Would that be a high weight for you, or be more the personality and the skill set?
It's more of a personality and skill set for me than the genre.
Okay.
Because you can teach a genre.
Yes.
Here's just do the research. You can teach a genre, but I want to be able to work with the person, and it doesn't matter if it's fantasy, steampunk, or horror.
That is really good, and as Teal handles the business end of Studio Blue, that's something I would absolutely defer to her. So that was awesome. Thank you for giving a little bit of insight. I want to thank everyone who is listening. This is one of those type of topics that a lot of the developers out there who are new developers don't think about. How am I going to get someone to help me?
It's a deceptively complex topic.
It really is. But if you approach it the way that we're talking about, specifically the way that Teal's talking about, where you go personality first, you're going to find that in the end, you're going to get the best person for the job.
You are.
To hammer it home one more time, it is not all about skill. If you look at someone who's just promoting what they can do and not the kind of person they are, then you're looking the wrong way.
Resumes will have the skills. The portfolios will have the ability. You look at those, absolutely.
Yep.
But when you get to the interview stage, you're wanting to know about the person.
100%. We want to thank our live audience for listening to us. It has been fascinating, as always, having you guys with your questions. Thank you so much. And if you listen to this on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc., YouTube, we want to thank you for listening then. Leave a comment if you're able. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about our format, our season 1 being all about being a developer.
Right.
And if you have any specific topics you'd like to see us tackle during this time, kind of gave the farm away a little bit. In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing one on running the studio.
Right.
And a little bit beyond that on managing your career. So Spoilers, right? Anyway, join us next time for DLC Not Included. And remember, everyone,
anyone can give you the key, but you have to go through the door.